service of our society, we are called to practice and promote discernment process in dealing with the cases of abuses. There are a lot of information you will receive, a lot of considerations you have to take into discussion. Discernment is important. Discernment, not only your own discernment, but discernment with the council. Discernment. Leadership is first of all about discernment and inviting and encouraging people to discern together. All our decisions should be preceded by discernment. There are two dangers we are facing as religious missionaries, especially as leaders. The first is activism. Activism. Rushing from one program to another, from one online meeting to the other, losing the spiritual roots and the quality time for community life. Activism. And oftentimes reading the reports of converts who are facing difficulties in their religious and missionary life, is losing quality time for community life is one of the highest, one of the gravest grounds, reason. Because people are rushing from one program to another program, one activity to another activity. Also as leaders, I think it's important to have that spiritual depth. But also mediocrity. Mediocrity. Just doing the minimum. And I observe more clearly that is really a danger in religious life. Because everything is provided. Everything is provided. So whatever I do little, I do more, I will get the same as my convert. So that is a challenge for us as leaders to animate converts to do more. And we also know from experience in leadership, the situation that brings people in converts ourselves to that situation where abuses can easily happen is if we have no clear activities, if people have too much time, don't know what to do. Once again, mediocrity is a temptation, is a danger in our life, religious life. And then caring and showing compassion. Stan mentioned clearly in his presentation, he used the terminology prophetic compassion. COVID-19 pandemic reveals the vulnerability of human beings and human institutions. Also, the cases of abuses reveals the vulnerability of congregations, of church, of other institutions. Pandemic COVID-19, we have in these last 2 years more than 500 converts who were or are still infected with the virus. 49 converts have lost their life in all zones. And last year was really a terrible year. So 40 passed away because of COVID-19. Because of or with COVID. Last year was the third year with the highest number of converts who passed away in the history of the society. 110. The highest was, I think, 1942, and 1942 because of the Second World War. But outside of the situation of the war, last year was the highest. And a big number of them passed away with or because of COVID. In some provinces, it really, this situation brings a lot of big challenges because even provincial passed away. Formators passed away. Converts having important, some ministries have passed away. A bishop passed away. A younger convert just being ordained 3 months passed away before going to his mission assignment. We need, as leaders, we need to find ways how to handle the situation of loneliness, vulnerability, also economic insecurity and poverty, loneliness. Many converts feel lonely in this time of COVID-19 pandemic. And some provincials mentioned to me some converts fell into alcoholism or pornography, right? Yeah. So loneliness. Because especially when everything was still locked down, no much activity, and people don't know how to use the time. So that was a critical time for many countries. Leadership at all levels is called to the understanding, to the vulnerability of converts, and to show compassion to the members, especially in such time of crisis. Also to animate converts to take care of one another. Some provincials reported that in some communities where there were some cases, a convert just let the convert there in his room, out of fear or whatever, don't do anything, and people from outside, they served the convert who was positive. So the quality of our community life is demonstrated in time of crisis. But sadly, it happens that in some communities, people don't care about one another. The cases of abuses of minors and vulnerable adults call us to give priority to the care for the most endangered groups of people in the society, in the wider society. Children and adults in vulnerable situations. Dealing properly with the cases is the best way to prevent new cases from happening. Dealing properly with the cases arising is the best way to prevent new cases from happening. I will say more words about this, that our priority is to care for the victim and to prevent more victims. But because if you are not dealing properly, there will be more victims. And victims normally produce new victims if they are not addressed properly, if they are not helped in a right way. Compassion to the converts does not mean to cover up the cases. We talk about compassion. Also come to compassion with the church, compassion with the society. Father mentioned that formulation, to feel the pain. Also feel the pain of the church if I as leader, I fail to do my part in addressing the issue. Then the consequence would be suffered by the church as well as by the congregation. And the consequence is first losing the credibility, and in many cases also the financial consequences. Losing the credibility is really very, very serious. To gain back the credibility we lose because of our improper way of dealing with cases can not easy to be recovered. Prevention is crucial, initial and ongoing formation. So, my dear parents and superiors, you are responsible for the formation in your respective PRM. You are the first one. So please take care of these issues, especially in the initial formation. And also converse in the final vows in different ongoing formation programs, remind us about this. We are talking about this Because for the church, and therefore also for us, the protection of children and the vulnerable adults is one of the very important values of the gospel. We are not doing that just because the political situation or the wider society is talking about this, but out of the conviction of the importance of protecting the children as well as those in vulnerable situations. That is a very important value of the gospel. And we have to proclaim the gospel, meaning we also need to be serious in dealing with the cases. The other learning is trusting the wisdom and experience of conference, including leadership on the ground. Trusting the wisdom and experience of conference, including leadership in the ground. My experience, I think also your experience in this, especially in the last 2 years, so that before we as leaders started to give any orientation, conference have taken initiative to respond to their concrete situation. Before we as leaders give some orientation, they already, out of the understanding of as a religious missionary, they already take initiatives to respond to the concrete situation. Therefore, as PRM leaders, we need to listen to the local leaders in all aspects of our life in mission, in doing administration. We need to listen to the local leaders. We are called to practice and encourage the understanding and practice of leadership that gives space for initiatives to respond to the concrete situation. This participative leadership, to make space that people feel free and creative, to respond creatively to the situation. Also, evaluation of the zonal structure. Really mentioned in this reflection today, the question, what can we as a zone do to respond to the situation happening, for instance, in Madagascar? So, we see what can we do as a zone addressing the issues arising, the crisis arising in our zone. Trust is not contrary to reminding and giving orientation. We trust, but it's not contrary to reminding and to giving orientation. Sometimes it's necessary to remind the leaders to do what is needed to address the cases of abuse. Sometimes it's needed. If you see the confer, district superior, or the local superior does not do what he is supposed to do, it's important to intervene, to remind. Also from our part. Letters, telephone calls, Zoom meetings, we organize to remind the conference, to remind the leaders to do what needs to be done. Cultural and ecclesial contexts oftentimes make us feel uncomfortable to address the cases of abuses, as Stan mentioned in his presentation. Cultural and ecclesial contexts. Sometimes it's for us at administration. It takes a lot to convince the confer that we have to take seriously the case. Because in some cultural contexts, confers feel still very difficult to address the issue. And sometimes even if we ask them to approach a bishop or other superiors, they are even discouraged to take seriously the cases. But we want to stand to our commitment to protect the children and vulnerable adults, because that is a very important gospel's values. Urgent reminder on this. Implement the norms of the society, the church, and the country if there is a case happens in your respective PRM. Implement the policies. Oftentimes, we know that from our list, a province has already a policy, but the superior doesn't know, doesn't read what is the policy there, so he acts as there's nothing. So we have to remind him to read and to implement what is written in the policy. So I think it should update the professional standards and the policy in protecting the minors and vulnerable adults. In December, I think we sent a revised version of the policy. We had to revise our policy because of the changes, new documents from the Vatican, especially these Lux Mundi and Vademecum. Also, maybe in your respective country, there are new norms introduced by the respective government. We need to update this policy. But once again, having the policy is one thing, implementing the policy is another thing. As of now, based on our data, referring to the first policy we had, there are still 2 or 3 provinces missing in drafting and sending to us their policy. So I make appeal to all of you. If you don't have it, please draft it, but with the orientation based on the revised policy. And then include these policies in the introduction of new missionaries. They know what is the policy of the province, of the region of the mission. The other learning is the need to improve communications. The need to improve communication. Many conferences all over the world prove themselves experts in using communication media for the purpose of mission. In your respective province, you realize how conferences organize themselves to use the new communication media to continue to proclaim the gospel, to share the words of hope to the people in this difficult time. Communication, but also among ourselves. At intra, it's important because communication fosters the feeling of belongingness and animate people to contribute to our communal sermons. Improve communication with people outside, but also especially inside, at intra. Some provinces share what they have done in these 2 years. They organize a lot of provincial assembly, even retreats, and ongoing formation online to strengthen the feeling of belongingness, but also to give a sign that we do not give up. We strengthen each other in hope. But at the same time, there is a need to animate, coordinate, and promote the use of communication technologies for mission. To coordinate, because there are many doing separately, so I think it's important to coordinate this. And continue to find times to be in contact with the conquerors, the superiors, to call the conquerors, to call the superiors of the communities, asking the situation in respective community. Communication technologies can be used to enhance the protection of the minors and vulnerable adults, but also to commit abuses. The communication technologies. I think in the Vademecum, the document of the Vatican, it's mentioned, even if we come to know about an accusation against a convert through the social media, it is to be seriously taken and to be addressed. So even if we happen to know it, to learn about it in the social media. But also to commit, social media can be used to commit abuses. Therefore, responsibility and caution are important using the communication technologies, starting already in initial formation. And then also some learnings from the past disasters our society had to go through. Only mentioned here, one is the year 2019-2020, and as 1919-20, when it was after the Second World War and this Spanish flu. Father Bloom, the second Superior General, he really made efforts to be in contact with the converts in the field. So he asked the students in San Gabriel to try to have contact with converts who are in the field, the battleground. Keeping contact, trying to find ways to keep contact. If there is a disaster, how we try to keep contact. And these three concerns after the Second World War: caring for those coming back from the war, caring for the victims, caring for those who came back from the war, that context. For us today, caring for the victims. Using judiciously our limited resources for our life and mission. At a time, still also urgent and actual today, using judiciously our limited resources for our life and mission. Darius will tell us a bit about this situation today. How the pandemic affects our financial situation. We are called to use judiciously our limited resources. And fostering the spirit of unity. Fostering the spirit of unity. I want to talk a bit more about this. It happens in most of the cases, if a convert commits sexual abuse of minors or of vulnerable adults, converts normally find ways to gain their supporters, to divide the province or the region. No? He tried to convince some converts to take side with him and to blame those who are addressing his issue. And the converts are divided. Some believe in him, some believe in the superior. So that's very often happens. That not all converts really believe what we are doing, addressing the issue of a convert committing this kind of crime. Still, I think it is important to keep the unity of the province, not by neglecting the case we have to address, but also but by convincing others about the truthfulness of the case we are dealing with. Father William Geer, the third Superior General, writes after the Spanish flu, the report show in general encouraging picture of development and the serious work of the society. Although in many places the war has destroyed the work that we have built with much sacrifice, nevertheless, when we look at the fields of our work, there is a sense of satisfaction and gratitude to God. Why I quote this statement? Yes, in the last 2 years we have seen a lot of difficulties. Also, we have to deal with the cases of abuse of minors and vulnerable adults. Yet, we shall not close our eyes to see the many good things converts are doing and we are doing. We need to address the issues properly, responsibly, but that is not the whole history about us. There are many positive, good things happening. That is the capital we have really to address the issues as they arise. Now I come to an update about the congregation. I start with the membership. Some figures I take from PowerPoint presentation prepared by Afghanistan. He sent to some of us some time ago after the publication of the Catalogus 2022. Here we see the development of our membership throughout the years. So now this year we have, at the beginning of the year, 2022, we had 5,977, 12 more than the previous year. But that is our number, around 6,000. Around 6,000. With this, we are the 6th biggest male congregation of the Catholic Church, and the first explicitly missionary congregation, the biggest explicitly missionary congregation. There's some details, these perpetual vows, see the comparison between the 2 years. So although the total number shows that this year it's an increase of 12, but if we look at those conferences in the final vows, it is a decrease. Temporary vows, that is an increase. Those in temporary vows, as well as the novices. Membership according to the zones, and here affiliation. So we see here in AFRAM there are 11% of converts working in AFRAM. 11% of the total number of the society are working in AFRAM. That is according to the zones of origin. Almost 10% of converts, or the total number of the converts, are from AFRAM. It's really a steady increase. If you see here, in the year 2020, for the first time in the history, the number of the converts from AFRAM outnumber those from Panam. So now AFRAM is in the 3rd place. ASPAC, Europe, and AFRAM, then Panam. So almost 10% coming from AFRAM, 11% are living and working in AFRAM. The brothers, it's a matter of concern because their number is just 10% of the total number of the whole members of the society, and if we take the converts and temporal vows, also about 10%. It's an appeal to us to really to do more in promoting the brother vocation. Scholastics, so here in AFRAM 158. It's a very high number. Second in the whole society after ASPAC. Novices, also AFRAM is second in the whole society. The number of the novices found in AFRAM. Now, the highest number of converts from a country of birth or of origin. Here they are listed 12, and 3 of them are from AFRAM. 3 out of 12 countries with the highest number of the converts are from AFRAM. That is Ghana, DR Congo, and Togo. It's also very interesting that China is within this group of 12. It is according to the province. 10, Ghana is one of these 10. Converts working outside of their own country. 10, again, 3 are from AFRAM. Very interesting. Togo, according to this figure, there are converts coming from originating from Togo are 101, but 76% of them are working outside of Togo or living outside of Togo for formation or pastoral ministry. It's a very high percentage. They are Congo, 106, and 51 of them are outside of the respective country. We are actually quite a young congregation. The average total of the total society is 48.82. I showed a figure before about converts in the formation, and these showing that we are a young congregation. Implication of that, really it's a blessing to have so many converts in the initial formation, but it's really a very big responsibility. A very big responsibility. To provide these young members a good formation, that they are ready to live their religious life and missionary vocation. Talking about formation, we talk about formandi, we talk about facilities. The more challenging is about the formation program and formators. I'm really happy, generally happy, that for this course of formators in NAMI now, the biggest group is from AFRAM. Thank you for responding positively to this appeal, really to identify and prepare converts to dedicate themselves to work in the formation. Big blessing, great blessing to have such a big number of vocations, but it's also a big responsibility. A good formation program and good formators. In terms of mission, now we are working in 79 countries because the Italian province just suspended last year the mission in Romania. So we are working in 79 countries and 17 are here in AFRAM. I happened to be in Mozambique before coming here. We celebrate 25 years of the second arrival of our missionaries. The first arrival was 1911. Togo will celebrate 130 years of the first arrival of our missionaries. But for many years, we couldn't be present in the continent, and then we started again in Ghana. So in the last years, we really increased our presence in the continent. The last mission is Bangladesh, but that is also a difficult mission, especially because of the difficulty in getting visa. 2 converts were present in Bangladesh. One of them is known to you, Marius Pakula, who was in Ghana. The other one is Father Gregory Pinto from India, and Cyprian Pinto. They were in Bangladesh for some time, but they had to leave the country because of the difficulties with visa. We have appointed some other converts. They are still waiting for the missionary visa. Hopefully the bishop assured us that soon he will organize with the government to give them the possibility to come to the country. Now, evaluating our ministries. That is taken from the yellow book prepared for the last Zonal chapter. You see, the highest group of converts are working in parishes, 33%. So it's 1/3 of converts. And if you take out those who are sick and who are in the training, the percentage would be much higher. It's a very big converts are working in parish ministry. And then education, administration, vocation promotion, other ministers, characteristic dimensions, and others. What is the implication of this? This is some figures showing the provinces with the highest percentage of converts working in parish ministry. Again, that's taken from a yellow book prepared for the chapter 2018. With the lowest, South Sudan, 0%, because we are still not yet involved fully in parish ministry. In education, the highest province with the highest percentage. Philippine South Province, they have schools and universities. It's 0% of converts working in educational ministry. The characteristic dimensions, South Sudan 100%. So once again, a large percentage of converts are working in pastoral ministry in all the zones. It's a potential, especially in AFRAM. Palestine mentioned today about the role of the catechists. In many parishes, we are working with the catechists. How really we train them, animate them to be agents of changes. To give really the characterized SVD in our parishes. The pandemic shows the limits of traditional missionary services such as parish ministry, especially in Europe. The number of people coming to the church before COVID was very low already, and after COVID lower. The limitations of parish ministry. At the same time, the pandemic demonstrates the relevance of our ministries, of other ministries. So therefore, once again, importance of implementing the profile of SVD parishes. Also, you know that because of travel restrictions, many converts are still stranded in their places. They cannot go for the first mission assignment or coming back from their respective home countries after spending their home leave. The policy of the Generalate up to now, if we receive a request of a convert asking for a change of first assignment because he's still waiting, he has been waiting for 1 year or 2 years, he's asking him to stay and ask the provincial to give him a temporary assignment because we believe that there will be a change also in the policies of the countries. So we still wait, and there are signs of changes, so we still wait to see how it develops. So the policy up to now is to ask the convert to stay in the respective province where he stays, and ask the provincial to give him a temporary assignment. Also, rediscover and promote prophetic dialogue. More importance given to our characteristic dimensions. And also I hope that this time forces us to revisit the extra priorities in the light of the experience of pandemic. Also promote centers for research and innovative ideas to strengthen our spiritual theological foundations of mission, centers of cultural studies, anthropos tradition in our society. We have centers all over the world of anthropology, of social, of missiology. We need to animate them. We need to revitalize them. And to continue to animate converts to reach out to the most vulnerable groups in the society. Animate and inspire, encourage young converts to see the intellectual ministry as important missionary service worthy of their choice. Repeatedly I say this, Palestine mentioned this morning, about the importance of doing research, study on the myths, rituals of the people. We have a tradition, but we need to encourage converts, not only to study, but to do really research, to do the work. Study, finishing studies is okay, but then implementing what we studied. encourage the TRMs for educational ministry. Yeah. Because we can bring a lot of changes, also in respect to the change of minds and attitude of people to respect more the children and vulnerable adults, as well as to respond to the crisis if we are really involved in education. Networking and collaboration. We cannot bring the changes by ourselves. We talked today about the changes when we face the cultural situation that is contrary to what we are promoting. To bring that change, we cannot work alone. We need to collaborate with different agents, social agents who are working towards social changes. Collaboration. Also collaboration among the religious congregations. Sharing mission responsibility with our lay partners. It's one of the 3 focuses we want to stress in this administration. And then Laudato Si action platform. Encourage you, dear superiors, really, to animate the conference, to discuss with them, to discern with them how to implement this Laudato Si action platform. Now I come to the administration, especially we'll be talking about the financial issues. I just mentioned some points. The declining financial resources, stricter regulations regarding donations in some countries that used to be our traditional donating countries. Many PRMs are not yet still using optimally their resources, the properties. We buy the property with the idea to generate income, but it lay down for years. We need to really optimize the use of these properties. Animate conference to implement consequently the obligations derived from our vow of poverty, that is financial accountability starting from every conference. Financial accountability. And it starts also with us, the leaders. We need to be first accountable with our financial resources. The change starts with the head. We need to be the first to be accountable, to be really honest in dealing with our resources. Also communicate in the right way, in a convincing way, the challenges the society is facing due to the pandemic, especially the financial aspect. Animate and help financial independent PRMs to work more towards generating income, and other PRMs to share their available resources. You continue on. Just a few minutes.
Okay, you already are very aware of I would say, our structure, also with different types of ministries, what we are doing, and so on. However, you know, the foundation of every activities, however we look into that, and however we approach that, it will always come down to the finances. If we have money, we can do. If we don't have money, we cannot do. Okay? Very simple. Very simple. Okay? And now looking at the, you know, maybe back 2 years, okay, when we faced the pandemic crisis, now the current situation in Ukraine, which is very much affecting a lot of financial markets, okay? We have to be very aware that many ministries, what we are really conducting in the different PRMs and so on, will be also affected. I have to be very clear about that. Because if you, for example, if you look in the global market for last 3 days, 4 days, you can see that the major markets like the Dow Jones, Nasdaq, S&P, or DAX in Germany, and so on, everything is down. What does it mean? If it is down, that means that the dollar, which is the primary source of support, okay, it gains the value. It's going up. What's happened? Your currency in your every single country is going down. Okay? Because if dollar is stronger, your currency is weaker. Okay? So we have to be very aware of that. So, looking at this whole picture, I would say, and that's what we spent maybe last 5 days talking during our provincial treasurers meeting and so on here in AFRAM. We were talking a lot about the self-reliant projects. Self-reliant projects which are, if you look in the documentation going back to even 60s, okay, always everybody was talking about the self-reliant projects. Now, my question is, where those projects are now? Because it was also mentioned very clearly that every province, every region, mission, should give the report from the self-reliant projects together with the financial report at the end of the year. I'm 3 years in the office. I didn't see the single one. Again, we may say, okay, we have something. Every province, every PRM in the AFRAM region has a project, because the treasurers were describing those projects, and so on. Now, it is also important for the General Council to know in what stage those projects are. Is the province, mission, region able to receive the income to support their own ministry? We are in general, we are using, General will pay. Honestly speaking, General does not have money. General lives on the money what you contribute to General. Does mean head tax. The second is special contribution. Okay? Now, when I was talking to Christian, who is our accountant, and we closed the books, and I said, Christian, how much money we still have? And he told me $12,000. What you are receiving during the March distribution, during the September distribution, you are receiving money which are basically earned or raised by the different mission procures, by the different provinces. General does not really have an asset. General is living on what you contribute. And very often what we can see, as ongoing, okay, let's say applications, this extraordinary, this we need to get, and so on. But if those mission procures who are raising money for the missions do not have any more, there is no asset. There is no asset to give. So we have to be very, very aware of that. That's why we are talking about the self-reliant programs, because eventually provinces and regions has to stand on its own. And now, if you look, for example, in the catalogus, you have some provinces which are already 80 years old, 90 years old, and so on, 50 years old, but they're still asking for a subsidy. Hello? I think this is not the right way to go. Where we are, okay, and so on. Did we do the good job into implementing those, let's say, projects for the self-reliance? Question. I had a chance, I'm just sharing this with you because I think it's very interesting. I had a chance to talk to the treasurers, okay, and we had a very, very rapid conversations, you know, and so on. And we just say, okay, about those self-reliant projects. What's happened is those self-reliant projects are not correctly implemented. Because if you have a self-reliant project, okay, and you have to pay the employee 100% what you receive from the self-reliant project is not a self-reliant project. Sorry, it's not. Normally, in the business world, if you have a self-reliant project, 25% of your income should go as an expense. 75% should stay as an asset, you know, to support the mission. So this is the first point. What I want to mention is that before we try to even think about the self-reliant project, first we have to calculate how much money we have to spend, because otherwise it doesn't work. A very simple example. One of the provinces had a self-reliant project and they had a chicken farm with 200 chickens. They closed it. Very good. Because these 200 chickens could only support the salary for the employee. So that means this is not a self-reliant project. But if they go to 1,000 chickens, they could, you know, bring the income for the province. See, the whole logic is very important, okay? Sometimes we try to do something, but really we do not think if this is really good for us. Sometimes our ambitions are too high and we try to implement them, but we don't have the money to start with. Huh? Very often, very common thinking. I'm not saying that's wrong thinking, it's a very common thinking, however, it's not profitable. Okay? So, those self-reliance projects, if I look back and try to analyze, for example, the properties, when most of the PRM send us the list of the properties, what they have, land, buildings, and so on. Some of them are not used. Question is why? Do we want to sit on them? And what? The second, if you are thinking logically, okay, we should use any single mean of the asset to produce another asset to support our mission. But we are not doing that. Why? Another question. Why? Maybe because we don't have a plan. Maybe we do not have a vision. Huh? Very important. And sometimes it's sad to see. You know, for me, it's personally sad. You know why? Because those people who are donating $10 out of their retirement, okay, to support the mission once a month. That means they have to pay all the bills, everything, and they donate $10 and so on. The money goes for a mission. Question is, how it is used. Again, another thing is, those people are dying off. That's the second thing. And you have to be very, very aware of that. When I started as a provincial treasurer of the Chicago province back in 2002, every week, I had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 contracts for annuity, okay, which were coming to the province. And besides that, the Chicago province has the largest charitable annuity program in North America, okay, with thousands of contracts, tons of people. You know what? When I was about to finish in October 2018, from January 1st, 2018 to October 31st, 2018, I signed only 6 contracts. Those people are gone. They are not going to support anymore. They are not going to give any more support. And again, we are in the kind of difficult environment. Difficult environment. So I think this is a very, very serious issue. Very serious issue. Because the provinces, PRMs, have to come up with the solid plans, with the solid ideas, what to do to support themselves. For example, let's say, if we are now in the process of receiving requests for March distribution, okay? For us, it's very difficult to plan. Because if you look in the Handbook for the Superiors, Section E, into the administration, is very clearly written on page 187 at the bottom, practical hints. Send the applications for March distribution by the end of November. Wow. We are still getting them now. So even if I plan to look for the money outside of the society, I can't. Because I don't know, when we are going to get applications. That's how it is. And see, so we have to use our resources. So if you look, for example, for a March distribution, what I presume we will have around 630 applications from all over the world, with the total amount requested maybe by $12 million. And right now we have only maybe 7 million, which is promised by the different mission proposals. That's the problem. Because, again, the General Council has to review all of them, and has to do some cuts. And now, if we do some cuts, we are limiting our ability, to finance different ministries. If we are limiting our ability because we don't have the third line project should kick in and support that. And the question is, on what stage are our third line projects? And again, I don't want to be kind of dramatic about this, but please remember, the money from Europe, the money from the United States will disappear. And that's the trend. People in Europe prefer now to support cemeteries for dogs, to support some green, whatever ideas are. I'm sorry, you're laughing, but I'm telling the truth. That's what is going on. Huh? They are not interested in support pastoral work. They are not interested to support formation. Simple example. Last year, I thought, just to go easy, and receive one application from one of the seminaries, which is pretty high, because it's over 370,000. So I put it, okay, let San Gabriel pay for that. 3 hours after I sent the email, I got this response. We cannot do that. Because San Gabriel in Austria can support only 25% of the amount available for a pastoral, and training in the seminary is clearly pastoral training. So, you see, we have to reverse certain things, okay, and do it somewhere else. But that's what is going on. Countries in Europe, those who are very highly supportive to the mission, or were very highly supportive to the mission, are reducing amounts of money available for the pastoral work. Pastoral work does mean everything related to formation, vocation, Bible apostolates, catechist trainings, and so on. They don't want to give any more for that, and administration. They don't want to give any more. So that's why the importance of self-reliant projects is very, very crucial. Another thing is, sorry, superiors, this is for you. Very often, I heard during the last week that your treasurers learn about the projects, what you are doing, from general ad. Okay? Every financial decision or decision which is going to carry the financial consequences should be discussed with the treasurer. He is the one who knows what's the financial position on your PRM. And they are telling me, oh, I got a letter from you. I just learned, but my provincial made this decision. Congratulations. Sorry, what can I do? That's why we called after, the last chapter, that every province, every region should have something like a finance committee, because you may have a good project, but are those projects endorsed by the finance committee? Are those projects known to the provincial treasurer? Please think about that, because it's very important. It's very important. Huh? Now, the next thing we discuss, and I think is also tremendously important, and it is a problem. That means money what our members are receiving from different activities. If you look into the handbook guidelines for temporary goods, there is written very clearly that the member, if he receives stipends, salaries, whatever it is, it belongs to the community when the member is assigned to. And you know well, in many provinces, this goes to the pocket of the member. Now, we are talking about self-reliance. We will never reach the self-reliance, okay, if we allow to do that. Because many people are doing their own fundraising. They are doing their own activities where they are paid for. Okay? Now, again, if the member is doing the fundraising, again is written in Handbook for the Superiors and also in the guidelines for the temporary goods. If he is doing on the neighboring province or some other province, both provincials, okay, should agree and permit to do that. This never happened. Now, why I say that? Very clear. I was in the States. I know how many people from the African countries were coming to do the fundraising. Illegal, even looking into the immigration law. So what they do is, they go to the parishes, they do the fundraising and so on, and after that they bring checks, because in the United States checking system is very, very important. They bring checks, the checks are written on their name, and they bring it to the mission office. Cash it for me. The mission office cannot do that, and because you are immediately on the list. If you do that, you may lose your status, tax exemption status, which is a killer for us. Killer. Simply. Now, another situation, very important, and also to remember, this is the same with the German-speaking countries. We have the mission offices which are very dedicated to the mission. St. Augustine, Steinhausen, okay, and St. Gabriel. And this is related to the reports from the grants. I would say that way. reports which are coming, because I see every single one. 95% is very poor. But we as, let's say, the finance office in general, we are not really the one who needs those reports. We need the accountability. We need the transparency. We need, to see that the money what was approved by the General Council is used specifically for that particular project. Okay? And now, looking at the record, okay? This is simple because we have the software, so we can generate whatever we want. We are missing the reports from 2014, 2013. Money were not even used, not spent, not implemented. The project was not implemented, and so on. Okay. It's a very simple rule, which is approved by the Superior General and his Council. No report, no support. Simple. But that's not the end. The situation is much worse when you can imagine. Because those mission offices who are giving the money for your projects, doesn't matter what they are. You know what's happened? They have a government audit. And the government in Germany, government in Austria, Switzerland, they don't play. They will come sometimes every 7 years, sometimes every 5 years, sometimes every 3 years. Like the last time in the case of St. Augustine, twice a year. And those guys will say, okay, give us the reports. And they will pick up one here, one here, one here. The money were granted. Where is the report? What the poor director of the mission office in St. Augustine should say? I don't have it. So, going further with this, they told him, you have to have a report. Because if we take your tax exemption status, you will have to pay taxes going back to 1968 when you were granted the tax exemption. And you know how much it is? 62 million euro. Okay? See, the importance of the simple things. And see, okay, it is sometimes very annoying, because you see now those mission offices will call me, write to me, and so on. What can I do? No, it's up to you. You are the superiors. You should look after that. Not me. We receive the reports, fine. That's what it is. But the thing is, those reports, they also have the chain of commands or channel of commands. First, they come from the parish. It should go to the treasurer. It should go to the local council. The council has to approve them and send them to Rome. Now, there is another thing which is kind of strange. Very often we are receiving something. There is no letter of endorsement of the PRM superior. There is no notification that the regional provincial council had a meeting, approved those requests. I'm sorry guys, that's what's happened. I'm telling the truth, okay? We have to have very strong, I would say, control of that. The regional or provincial council cannot send something, they will deal with that. Yeah, we will deal in the way what we can. We don't know the single parish which is in Botswana, south, somewhere, and so on, what they need. You as the superiors, you are the one who are delegated by your appointment to make sure that the staff what you are requesting is correct. We cannot do that because we don't know. We don't know. You are the one. You are the one who is responsible for that. Very often, there is a line. If you read carefully the application, there is a line. Okay, request from General at local community support, province support. I would say 97% of the applications which are coming, there's nothing there. So that means 100% we need to get. My question is, now, if we are in the well-established parishes, in the well-established environment, cannot parish support the simple project? Support in the sense at least 20%, 30%? The reason why I'm saying that is because, again, we are coming back to the self-reliant projects. Be aware that the money will end. Question is now, how you are going to support your ministers? Because again, the money really does not sit in the general. The money are with the different mission offices. Let's say, in the percentage way, this is not a confidential information. I can tell you like this. When I look on the map of the world, okay, and try to see, okay, how much money I am getting from what continents, okay, zones, let's put it zones. I look on the map, Europe, 48%, and some. North America or Panam zone, because that's mainly North America, but also some Panam zone provinces, 43%, okay? ASPAC, 7.5, 3, 4, whatever it is. AFRAM, 0.01, or 5, sorry, 5. Now, when I go back and see our distribution rate, okay, we go a little bit opposite way. ASPAC, maybe 48%. AFRAM, 47%. Europe, close to 9%, because of the Euro region is only one which is supported. And Panam, it will be maybe 9%, 10%. So see, if we look into that, I think this system, the self-reliant, is not working. Because the subsidies, okay, or the provinces who are asking for the subsidies, every year they should decline the subsidy, okay, because they have self-reliant projects. But in the current situation, it's not working. So, now the question, very specific. How we now do, or what we do on how we are going to look now into those self-reliance projects, which we have basically in every single PRMs besides South Sudan in Africa. Because every province has some. Are those self-reliant projects producing the money to support our ministries? Or we are asking again in March or September distribution for the money to support self-reliant projects, because that's also case, very clear. So please think, use the professional advice how to increase the income from the self-reliant projects, how to make it more profitable for your local ministries. Because, again, we are going to have a problem. And again, honestly speaking, this is not that I am talking about this only to AFRAM zone. This also will be taught in Panam zone. This also will be taught in ASPAC. Because eventually, provinces, regions, they have to stand on their own legs. Because otherwise there is no future. See, the biggest expense, if you look around, is for what? Any guess? Is for the pastor. Second, a lot of requests for the capital. But we have a priorities. We have a formation where we have to support our future treasure of the society. That means our members. And also, never forget about us. We have to provide the support for our elderly missionaries. Those who already spent 40, 50 years working in the field. Question is, do we have the resources to support them? Because we are not thinking about that. But again, every of those old guys who spent so many years, it's really worth to have a decent life. Decent life in the sense to have a medical support, to have a decent place to live. We cannot forget about that. So now the question is, where we are with those projects, where we are with those initiatives, okay, what we are planning, when we look different documentation from the different general chapters. There are recommendations, there are resolutions, and so on. Are we following them up? Or is just a matter of document, sitting, and so on? Administration, remember, is not only the money. Administration is not only the money. Administration is a planning. Administration is looking forward to the establishment what we have. Administration is more as a managing. Administration is more as a getting everything in one. But I think, as far as I see it, and not the first time in Africa, because I visited Congo already, Ghana a couple of times, Kenya, second time is here. My feeling is that we are not thinking ahead. We are thinking now. We are thinking now. We are not thinking, for example, how we are going to utilize our resources, 2-3 years from now. We are not having kind of estimate possibly how many seminarians we will have. We do not think ahead what are our expenses going to be, for example, for a formation. We are not thinking those simple things. We sometimes have idea, let's do this, let's do that, and so on. But with this idea, sometimes we are not thinking about the consequences. Because every idea, every decision has the consequences. Consequences which are put on us. We may come up with a brilliant idea to build out something and so on. Now, okay, do we think how we are going to finance this? We may open another office, we may open whatever NGO and so on. Do you think how we are going to finance the employees? Are we thinking about it? This is very important. And I think, you see, if you compile everything together and so on, I think what we need, we need to have this time for discernment. Time for discernment. If we are coming with an idea, let's have a discernment. Let's have a time to think about this. Because I'm not saying that all the ideas are wrong or not applicable. But I think what is important is very often we go with the emotions. We have a emotion. Okay, we should do this, we should do that, and so on. Perfect. It's great, but do we think about the consequences? How later on we are going to support this particular ministry? And I can give you tons of examples. Not from Africa, but from North America, from Europe, about decisions, about, and so on. Again, my point is, what's next? So that's why many PRMs, how I heard from the treasurers, are thinking how to, what to do, you know, just to make it valuable, how to produce, to make it better, to make it, you know, and so on. Perfect. But the project itself, it does not have any value if we do not know what follows up. That's the most important. That's the most important. And again, there are some NGOs all over the world who are sponsoring certain projects, who are sponsoring activities, mission activities, starting from the hospitals, schools, whatever you name, and so on. But again, if they do not have a solid professional project, if they do not have a solid professional calculation, they will never get the money from that. And that's a given. So, please, as the superiors, you have this power with your councils. If you are coming to the point that you like to do something, think it twice before you give it to the public. Think it twice. Okay? Evaluate. See the consequences. Because every project has a consequences. There's nothing without the consequences. And there are different consequences. Legal consequences, financial consequences. That's how it works. So please, because I heard from the guys, you know, and it was kind of interesting, yeah? They have ideas, you know. I was just kind of amazed about Botswana, having this tomato plantations, you know, and so kind of interesting thing, it's self-reliant project, farming, farming. Yes, you had another one from Togo, I think. It's they have a farm. They are producing piglets. They are producing livestock. They have a garden and so on. See, it is working, but because it was well planned before. But from the other side, on the other side of the coin, if you look, for example, okay, you know, in your own province, how many, let's say, sites were purchased for the self-reliant projects, and nothing happened. Nothing. Simple. So my question is, for what to keep it? Sell it. Because it's not helping you. Anyway, eventually you have to pay taxes on that, but that's another thing. So, you see, very, very, I would say, constructive plan. And if this constructive plan for the self-reliant projects is in place, you have it. And you know that the self-reliant project is going to support you. That's how it is. Very simple. Very simple. Okay, I think Father is not finished. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for listening. That's my little input. What I am going to be here yet today and tomorrow, and Wednesday I'm flying back to Rome. If any of the provincial superiors would like to talk to me, you are welcome. I think we are going to have a provincial council meeting tomorrow with the Kenya province, and so on. Otherwise, feel free. Okay, thank you.
So Father General will wrap it up with the vision for our the general chapter that is about to come.
Dear conference sisters and dear parties, I want to conclude with some information about the general chapter. As we have received the circular letter some weeks ago, the 155th anniversary of our congregation, we want to somehow combine these two events. So The spirit of preparation, the spirit of synodality, attentive listening, honestly speaking. It's a process. It's a process. I would like to encourage you to really involve conference in this preparation of the chapter. It's not only the event celebrated in the provincial chapter and in May 2024, but the whole preparation also for Mandi as well as our mission partners. The theme, as mentioned today in the morning, your light must shine before others, faithful and creative disciples in a wounded world. Context we are living in shows that our world, our society, the church, as well as ourselves, are wounded. Still, we are called to be faithful and creative disciples. See the wounded world is three aspects. See, judge, act. See the wounded world, judge, biblical reflection. That is the structure of the document we sent to you. And then act, strengthening our identity. Formation, there's really an important entry point, formation. What to do with ecological crisis, digital era, collaboration with our lay mission partners. That's the structure of the document we sent to you. And as I mentioned before, please be aware that we would like to ask those conference for initial formation as well as our lay partners to be part of the whole process. Therefore, the conference in the initial formation will have their own reflection, sent to you but also sent to us, as well as our mission partners will have their own reflection sent to you and sent to us. Yeah? So this time we really want to listen also to our, especially to our young conference as well as our mission partners. This once again about listening, and then I want to conclude with a statement from the presidents of the two unions of the UST as well as UIST. Why? Because the two unions take a lot of initiatives in addressing the issue of sexual abuses, as well as in addressing the situation arise with the COVID-19 pandemic. One initiative is that we created, the two unions created a joint commission for the protection of children and vulnerable adults. A joint commission. I would like to encourage you as superiors of the provinces, regions, and missions. You are part of the unions of the congregations in your respective country. Maybe you can bring an example of creating a common commission, a joint commission of the male and female congregations to help us in addressing the issues of protection of sexual abuses of minors and of vulnerable adults. That is the reason why I take this as a conclusion remark from my presentation, because the two unions have done a lot in these last years. If you happen to see the links of webinars, the two unions organize a lot of webinars in raising awareness as well as helping us in addressing the issues. Again, my concrete proposal is, if you in your respective country make proposals to the unions of the male and female congregations to create also a similar joint commission to help the congregations in addressing these issues. Thank you very much, dear conference, dear sisters, dear missionary partners.
I would like to thank Father General and Father Dairos for the presentation. Father Dairos deals with money, and he was very passionate about his money issues, and we are also very grateful that he's giving us a vision as to what we must do as provinces, missions, and regions. Father General, we are very grateful for your presentation, and you highlighted a few points. I think that is something that we can embrace, and one of them is, what are we doing in the light of the pandemic? you also linked the pandemic to sexual abuse at the very latter part of your discussion, and we find that our administration as PRMs are supposed to be leading in these situations and be able to bring these things out. We want to say thank you so much for your presentation. For your presentation, the presentation of Father Lazar, we'll please present them to the secretary. The secretary will put it in the computer, and every member who is here today will get a flash disk, and we'll download all the information on the flash disk, and you take it back home so that we can be able to go through them again. Thank you very much, and thank you also. On this note now, I will ask that we have a short break, and then we go for some coffee or something. And at the coffee break, I think we have already, though Father Dario said was going to give a short, brief thing, realized that his was not brief. So we will see, after coffee break, we will come in, and then we'll round up with one of the presentations. Then tomorrow, we'll continue with the other. So we'll have a short break. So we go for the coffee break now, please.